My qualification for making this video? I'm a queer 1975 fan who is half Malaysian. Doesn't get much more involved than that. Hello friends, it's time to talk about our favorite problematic man again. A couple months ago, I did a video documenting the timeline of Matty, Healy, and Taylor Swift for their potential little relationship that they had, and I did not expect to be talking about him again so soon. Now it's for something a little bit less fun. Before we get into any of this, I want to say for one thing, I'm coming at this a lot less as a fan, a lot more just as an observer. I would like to try and be understanding, but also looking at this situation, it's a lot easier to get upset at this. So I'm gonna try my best to be as unbiased as possible. I'll try to cover both sides, try to see why things would happen either way. I also want to make it very clear that I don't know anything about what I'm talking about. This is just me kind of jumping into something that I thought was interesting, something that I want to know more about, and maybe you do too, but you don't want to look into it so you can see me looking into it, because normally I would try to do some research before going to my videos, but with this one I kind of just saw a headline or two and I want to just jump into it. I apologize in advance. We're just exploring this topic together because the 1975 were recently performing at a music festival in Malaysia, and while on stage they made some comments about Malaysia's anti-queer rules that go on there, because that is a very anti-LGBTQ place. He called out the government for being so hateful.
You know what? We can't let the kids down because they're not the government. But I've done this before. I've gone to a country where it's I don't know what it is. Ridiculous. Ridiculous to tell people what they can do with that.
He called the country out for being so hateful and then kissed a band member on stage. They were taken away and the festival ended up shutting down. They decided to cancel the other days because this was night one of this maybe 3-day music festival. So the 1975 has been touring with this album for close to a year now. They've been going around America, Europe, Asia, just all over the world. For this Good Vibes festival is from the 21st to the 23rd of July, and the 1975 was supposed to headline the first night, so they were the final act of this first night out of 3. If you go on the Good Vibes Festival website, they have an official statement up right now. It says, "We deeply regret to announce that the remaining schedule of Good Vibes Festival planned for today and tomorrow has been cancelled following the controversial conduct and remarks made by UK artist Matty Healy from the band The 1975. The decision comes from the Ministry of Communications. They underlined its unwavering stance against any parties that challenge, ridicule, or contravene Malaysian laws. We sincerely apologize to all our ticket holders, vendors, sponsors, and partners. We are aware of the time, energy, and efforts you have put into making this festival a success, and we value your steadfast support. We will update you on refunds. We appreciate your understanding." Which I do want to say, it's not Matty's fault that they decided to cancel the other days of the festival. Yes, he might have caused his own show to get cut off halfway through, but there's no for sure way that he would have known that that is what they would do. I do think it's something he should have considered because of how extreme the thing that he was doing was, but I don't think it's his fault that it happened. And there are a lot of mixed responses from fans, which you also have to remember that the response is going to be different based on the context of the audience. So a lot of American fans probably think that what Matty did was a great thing, because if you were to do that here, it would seem like this really confident rebellion, and America is a lot more accepting of that type of thing. If you were to start talking about politics at a music festival, they might shut down your act in particular, but they're probably going to keep the show going. And then you look at Malaysian fans, where there are some people that are saying this is great because they are queer, and even if it was shut down, they see that other people exist and are willing to stand up to these rules. On the other hand, do you consider all the fans that lost a bunch of money because they couldn't go, they couldn't see the other artists that were performing the other nights? That also obviously affects the other people that were performing the other nights and everybody that was going to be there to sell things or to buy things, or like there's so many people involved in this. So before the kiss, he went on this whole speech calling out their anti-LGBTQ laws, and then officials ordered them off stage and they said,
Alright, we gotta go. We just got banned from Kuala Lumpur. I'll see you later.
While he was performing on stage, he told the crowd that it was a mistake to go perform in Malaysia. He said that when they were booking shows, he wasn't looking into it, and he doesn't see the point of being invited to a country and then being told who you can or cannot do things with. So he doesn't like that he's going into this country and now they're saying you're not allowed to kiss another man, where if he was at the place that he came from, he'd be able to do that just fine. He said, "Unfortunately, you don't get a set of loads of uplifting songs because I'm furious, and that's not fair on you because you're not representative of your government, because you're young people, and I'm sure a lot of you are gay and progressive and cool." And then half an hour into the set, he kissed Ross, the bass player, and then they left. And then a source confirmed to the BBC that Matty is a longtime supporter of LGBT community, and the band wanted to stand up for the fans and the community and the rights and everything. thing. And when I first saw this, I thought it was really cool. I thought, you know, it's really brave that somebody is gonna go to this country where they know it's so not okay, and they're gonna make this big brave statement. They're gonna stand up for something that this country is so against. And then I looked into it more and I realized that there's a lot of consequences that just were not considered. And especially when you are at this level of fame, it's worth considering the consequences. The main thing that upset me was he said that he hadn't looked into it. As in, he didn't know the severity of their intolerance for queer people. I don't know. That could mean a lot of things, but if you just look on the Wikipedia for Malaysia as a whole, if you look up LGBTQ rights in Malaysia, there are no rights that are guaranteed if you are queer. There are no rules to protect you. You can have up to 20 years of imprisonment. Again, no laws that protect you against discrimination or hate crimes. It's hard to judge how many people in the country are queer just because of widespread fears of being ostracized and prosecuted, including violence. There are no protections for these people. Conversion therapy is practiced regularly in the country and is openly promoted by politicians and religious leaders. In 2023, the Global Trans Rights Index ranked Malaysia as the second worst country in the world in terms of transgender rights. Clearly, this is not a very accepting place, and it doesn't take a lot of research to know that. And if you don't feel comfortable performing in a country that is so anti-whatever, if you want to make a statement about not performing in these places because of their lack of acceptance, then know that going into it and don't go there. Like, that's the first thing that bothered me. Don't get your fans excited that they finally get to see you. Maybe you haven't gone to that country or they haven't been able to see you. Maybe they don't even know you, but they're excited for the other days of the festival, whatever it is. Don't headline a festival in the capital of a country without knowing their beliefs. Like, that doesn't make any sense for me. If you want to stand up for that, do it before you go there. Set a hard rule, no, I'm not going to this country because of this reason. And this Wikipedia page is being updated frequently within the past hours. The history of queer things now at the bottom of it says, in July 2023, English pop rock band The 1975 was forced by the organizers to prematurely end their performance after the lead vocalist Matty Healy criticized the country's widespread anti-LGBT laws. This is now part of the country's history. Kind of unrelated, I'm just looking at BBC articles, and apparently in 2020 Matty said that they're not going to play at festivals that are male-dominated. So there has to be a fair balance of female and non-binary artists with male artists because it's kind of a male-dominated industry. And he said that they already agreed to some festivals that it's not going to apply to just because they had already agreed to it, but from here on he's going to try and make the effort. And that's good and fine, but I'm wondering if you're going to look at the set list and decide to play a festival, like if you're able to decide to play a set based on if there are women there, surely you can look at the countries that you're flying to see if their beliefs align with your own. It just doesn't make sense to say that you didn't look into it. Again, I'm looking at the BBC website. It says an entertainment director for the festival told BBC News that the band's Kiss came as a complete surprise. Prior to the performance, we were reassured by management that they would adhere to all local performance guidelines, as do all international artists that perform in the country, which also suggests that the band does know that they're not allowed to do this. Like, they did agree on some level between the manager and the people who directed the entire festival. Somewhere along the line, it was communicated to both parties that you're going into this country and you have to adhere to their laws. You don't have to like it, but if you don't like it, then don't be there. You can't go there, agree to it, and then change your mind. And then the director went on to say that international acts need to understand that breaking rules comes at a high cost and not necessarily for the performers. He can fly in here, he can make this big statement, he can do this big act, and then he can get escorted out. It's a big dramatic thing. To him, maybe it feels like he's saving the day. He's being this voice that young people in Malaysia don't have. And that's fine, and it's great to think that, and it's great to want to be that. But you have to consider how it will actually affect people. I saw this TikTok, which is the whole reason I got into it. It was somebody who had lived in Malaysia for 18 years, kind of coming at this from the perspective of somebody who would know both sides of this. And this is what got me so angry was,
our country has a really bad history of anti-LGBTQ legislation and just general. It hasn't been the safest place for queer people to exist. It hasn't for a while. There's just so much shit about, like, oh my god, Matt Healy did an amazing thing for the Malaysian queer community by standing up for, like, the rights and standing up for, like, what's right and wrong. No, Matt Healy, you're a fucking idiot. Do you have any idea what the repercussions of this situation is? You have shown the power of Malaysian authority when it comes to this shit. You said yourself, you didn't even look into it. I hate this bullshit white savior complex of people coming into regions like Southeast Asia with no prior research whatsoever to what the culture is like, to like what the repercussions of certain things are, come in and do this shit and then ruin it for not them, but for people that actually live there.
the the lack of consideration and how he's kind of this white man coming in with the savior complex. Very common. When you come into another place and you have all this privilege, you think you can just make a big show out of doing something that isn't allowed, as if that'll somehow challenge their rules, instead of just making it so much harder for everybody else who now has to stay living in that place. They still have to deal with the consequences, and you can just fly back out to the places that do accept you. Matty can come back to America, Matty can go to Europe, and they're gonna be fine with seeing him perform, because maybe in those places it doesn't seem wrong to do something like that. But for all the performers or all the kids or everybody else that still lives there, now has to deal with the consequence of somebody agreeing and then breaking this rule. And this is not the first time he's done something like this. In Dubai in 2019, he shared a kiss with a fan, and a lot of people criticized him, not necessarily because he was kissing a fan, although obviously people have their own arguments about that and if it's morally okay to be kissing a fan when there's a clear power imbalance. But the issue was that being gay in Dubai can lead to imprisonment of up to 10 years, so while to you it may just seem like a fun, risky little thing, the person that lives there could have really serious consequences. And he tweeted after and said that he doesn't think he'll be allowed back in Dubai, but that he wouldn't have done anything differently. And I think that's interesting to consider now, where before maybe they were able to finish the set, maybe it wasn't a big deal. And I know it's something that is still frequently talked about on both sides, people saying that it was really cool that he did that, and it's really cool that he's up there performing and challenging these ideas, and then other people saying that you shouldn't risk your fans like that. But now, when it's not even their concert, if it was a 1975 specific act and the fans were there just for them, if they want to do some big performative thing, then you could argue that it's just their own fans that are going to be affected. But again, this was a huge festival. This was night 1 out of 3, and everybody else that wanted to go see these performances of people that had nothing to do with the 1975 now lose that opportunity. And the person in the TikTok mentioned that it's not just going to be this festival that gets canceled, it's probably going to be months of live performances, because they can't risk something like this happening. Again, the people running this whole thing were upset. They said that Matty chose to utilize this performance as a platform to express his personal views rather than delivering the quality show that his Malaysian fans were eagerly anticipating. This is deeply unfair to his fans who were looking forward to enjoying a memorable music experience. We fear it will erode the confidence of music promoters and various stakeholders in the live entertainment industry and threaten the stability of our live art scene. And I think that's kind of the main takeaway. It's just that there was not a lot of consideration for the fans. Like, yes, in the moment, it may feel good to take your frustration out by doing such a public thing. I imagine it would feel really powerful to go to a place where something is so clearly not allowed and then to do it anyways. And yes, maybe you get banned, but at least you get to do it. At least you're starting this conversation. It might feel like a really great thing, but now you get to leave. You're a wealthy, famous white man who can just go back to Europe and it's not an issue for you anymore. And yes, it's upsetting that it's happening, and yes, it's something that we should be standing up to. We should be trying to fight it. We should be trying to make these places better for the queer youth. And this is where this conversation gets frustrating, because I don't know the way to do it. How do you go to some of the most hateful anti-queer places in the world and try and change the way that they're run?
A lot of people are saying that, like how you come to Malaysia, you obey our laws and stuff like that, which on one hand I get. But on the other hand, if your laws discriminate against LGBT folks, then I think it is inherently homophobic and it should be eradicated. And this is the reason why I think that Matty Healy's message is sort of like a protest, and why I also think that protests are the way to go, because you can't expect big changes to happen if nothing is being done, nothing is being said, nothing is being put in place, nothing is being there to, sort of grab attention from people to make change.
I'm just thinking how many queer fans were in the audience that were looking forward to seeing this performance from somebody who they know is accepting of them. Even when their entire country is working against them, they can go see somebody. They can be surrounded by like-minded people, and just for this little bit, they don't have to talk about it, they don't have to actively acknowledge it, but they can just coexist. That was just, he was frustrated that he was supporting that government by being there, but just don't be there. When you're on a stage, you have these thousands of people all looking at you. Now that it's done this, probably millions of people all paying attention to the situation, but they're not talking about the queer rights. Nobody is paying attention to how cruel this country can be to queer people. That's not the focus of this conversation. We're talking about his behavior. We're talking about how either the thing that he did is so brave and so cool, or we're talking about why it was super offensive and disrespectful. But doing this just means that people are focused on him. If you care about the LGBT community in this place, do things for them. And again, I don't know how you could do that. I think the best way that you could do that is by providing a safe and accepting space, which is what that concert venue would have been. Go there, and if you can't explicitly say it, then don't say it, but just be there. Just let the fans know that you do believe in them. You can post publicly about the things that are going on there so that more people are educated, because I think that's a huge part of this, is just people don't know how bad it is there. One of the most homophobic countries in the world, especially if the issue is that you didn't know and that you feel bad for being there because you don't want to be supporting that, then promote the information. Spread the actual reasons why you don't want to be there. Don't just make a big show out of it. I will say this point is also largely based on my own experience with Malaysia as a whole, because like I said at the beginning, I am half Malaysian. I've been there multiple times in my life, and I didn't know how bad it is for queer people over there. And that makes me really upset, because that's something that people should know more about. I feel like when I was growing up, I had it in my head that people didn't even know where that was. It was always kind of this secondary country to the other Asian countries, which is a whole thing in itself. So I think this perspective is kind of biased because of my previous perception of the country and people's lack of information, but also there is just a lack of information. That's not something that's taught, that's not something that's talked about. And I think it would be really beneficial to point out things like that, to say, hey, this country is super not accepting. And you have to do it in a way that doesn't just bash the country as a whole, because there's still a whole culture that you have to consider and you have to accept. The last thing you want to do is start talking about these hateful things and then you go into bashing the country as a whole, or the people, or the religions, or it should never be a personal attack, and it should never be an attack on the way that these people live their lives. It's a way that the governing system is. And either way, it's going to end up offending people. There's no way to do this that is clean and right and good, but I'm sure there are more beneficial ways to do it. And I do kind of see the appeal of doing something like that. The idea that you are directly standing up to this government. And there have been queer fans who come out and say that it was really great that they got to see this happen, because they can see that people are standing up for them. I'm just really frustrated because I wish there was an answer. I wish there was some clear, here's how we can make the world a better place for people that are in these hateful situations. But there just isn't one. There's no easy answer. There's no, oh, he should have done it this way. It just doesn't work like that. But I think if you want to take a stand, if you want to try and help these people, you have to consider how your actions are going to directly affect them. Now, if any other queer accepting artists want to go perform there, they might not be able to. They might be losing their performance experiences. It leaves the fans feeling even more isolated. Because when something is this public, the only way that you can control it is by making things even harsher, by making things even worse. I wish I had something deep and insightful to say to end this video, but I just don't know. It just sucks. The places are hateful. It sucks that places aren't accepting and that they won't protect those who are being attacked. And it sucks when people feel like they're helping and they don't pay attention to the consequences. Or when people take out their feelings and they don't really care about who it hurts. I like the 1975. I like listening to their music. I have been a long-time fan of them. So I don't want to sit here bashing them. I don't think they're intentionally trying to harm the fans or trying to take away these music experiences. I think they genuinely just don't consider why it would matter. Because when you come from a place of privilege, when you come from a country that is more accepting and you don't understand the severity of that situation, even when you do go and you try to make a big stand and you try to do all these things and you think that you're being beneficial, you don't understand how that country is going to handle it. Also, shortly after the venue announced that they were canceling the rest of the festival, Matty posted this on his story, and then the same day posted kind of a jokey picture about Malaysia, followed by a bunch of pictures of him and Ross throughout the years. So I think it's safe to say that he doesn't regret the thing that he did, which I gotta say, I love the confidence, I love the dedication, I love the energy that we're putting into this, but I don't know what it would feel like to be a Malaysian fan right now. I don't know if I would be appreciative of this or if I would feel disrespected. So while I'm happy that he's sticking with his decision, I hope he's also being considerate of all the fans that he maybe let down. When he was on stage, he was talking and he said he considered dropping out of a show due to Malaysia's anti-gay laws. He said, I pulled this show yesterday and we had a conversation. We said, you know what, we can't let the kids down. So does that mean he knew what he was supporting and he didn't feel good about it, but he decided he didn't want to let the fans down, so instead he's gonna hype them up, he's gonna go there, he's gonna get on stage, and then he's gonna drag down the entire rest of the festival? It would have been so much more considerate for the fans if you had just said, hey, I don't feel comfortable performing here, I'm gonna back out. Why would you go on stage knowing that? Does that mean you go on stage knowing that you're gonna back out, that you're gonna do this big act? I don't get it. When he was talking about the Dubai kiss in 2019, he said that it's not him that needs to change, it's the world that needs to change, and that the audience was super accepting and super excited, decided that this thing was happening, but the government just tells us that we shouldn't like these things being gays. He said it was a genuine, intimate, human moment between two people. Also in their music, they say it's time for civil disobedience, it's time to rebel, everything needs to change. Obviously, they're very anti the way that these governments are happening. They're very much trying to shift the world into a more accepting place for gay rights and for people of color and for the environment, for like climate change, everything. The band very much speaks out for these things. They try to be supportive and they try to call out the issues. And I think sometimes it can be easy to get a little bit lost in that and to not even realize that the thing that you're doing might not be as beneficial as you feel like it is, and you want to feel like you're doing good, so you justify it, but that doesn't mean it's doing what you want it to do. He said he's no stranger to harsh criticism for what he says and does, and he told the crowd that he's fine with that. He wants to use his performance for good, whether that annoys people or not. I will take those criticisms all day, every day. If you're on the stage and you do nothing more than indulge in yourself, you are not doing anything for anybody. We have to stand for things, and that puts us in opposition of things. I think the sentiment is great. I think that's a great idea. If you have this much power and you're this much of a public figure, it is great to be standing up for rights. It's so good that he's using his platform in that way. But saying if you're on a stage and you'll do nothing more than indulging in yourself, that's entirely what happened here. Yes, the idea came from a good place. It came from wanting to stand up. But at the end of the day, it was because he personally was angry and he took it out on all the fans, everybody that was there. In 2018, the 1975 helped finance an LGBTQ+ community center in London. They made a donation that helped the project reach its fundraising target. He said he's a bit wary of talking about it because he doesn't want to appear to be virtue signaling, but the bandmates all agreed that it was a good thing to put their money towards. And they said a large portion of the 1975's fan base comes from the queer community, so the decision to fund the center seemed like a natural choice. They're very aware of who their audience is. And again, that's why it's so frustrating, because when you're performing, when you're on stage, you're gathering this audience of people who you know are queer. You know so many people in your audience are LGBTQ+, whatever. So if you're gonna commit to the performance, then commit to it. Give them an hour or two of space where they can exist freely. You have the ability to create a safe and accepting place for them, and maybe you can't speak out as openly as you would like to, but you can just be there for them. And then maybe afterwards, you can speak out about it. You can put out a bunch of articles about all the things that Malaysia needs to do differently. If you want to bring awareness to the terrible treatment of queer people in that country, don't do it while actively taking away from. That's what they have in that moment, was you. I think it would have been so much more beneficial to do the whole show, to let them know that they're loved, then after the show, speak out, say hey, again, address the fans. It should all be about the fans. Tell them that you appreciate their support, you really feel for them, you hate that they're in this situation and that they don't feel accepted by their community, by their government, by their country. You call it out without taking away the one good thing that they might have had. Because once the performance is done, now those fans can go back to doing whatever they're doing, and then you can speak out and you can say, hey, this is unacceptable, I'm sorry you have to live like this, let me help share this information with the rest of the world so that we can all be more aware of the things that need changing. But doing all of this is self-indulgent. It's entirely focused on his personal frustration. I'm going in circles. I think the energy is great. I love the idea of rebelling against an unaccepting government, but if that government, if that community, if that country has nothing to do with you and you get to leave at the end of the day and you don't have to worry about what happens after, try to consider the people who do. I would like to be more educated. I would like to do what I can. We should be more focused on informing than shutting down, because if we inform, then we can shift things. But you're probably not going to make this profound difference. I'm going to put links in the description to everything that I got information from. I'll try to put in the videos from the concert or anything that came after. And I'm also going to try to put links to LGBTQ projects, donations, whatever, supportive things. Because yes, a lot of the 1975 fans are young people, and a lot of them are gay, and a lot of them are progressive. That's kind of what this whole fan base is built off of, is just calling out all the things that need to change in our world. And I wish we could all take that energy and channel it into something that's actually going to be productive. Please don't take this video too seriously. Like I said, I have no clue what I'm talking about. I know very little about the ways that governments are run. I know very little about music industry things, and I definitely don't have the answers for the ways that this should have been handled. But I thought it would be fun to kind of go through it together and to just kind of voice my frustrations at the situation. Because as a fan of the 1975, it sucks to see people being negatively affected by his actions when he's acting like it's a good thing. So if anything else comes up. Maybe I'll add it in the description of this video. Along with that, if there's any information that I missed, or if there's any conversation that you want to have about this topic, leave it in the description. But try to be nice to each other, because at the end of the day, it's just celebrities. It's just famous people doing random things. Sometimes public figures make not the greatest decisions, and we just have to move on from that. But I'm gonna wrap the video up here because I feel like I haven't really said much of anything. I've just been going in circles. But it was nice to get it out of my brain. So if you like this video and you want to see more like it, you can subscribe to this channel, or if you just like my face, you can subscribe to my main channel, riverbxnd, where I post music content, or any of my social media. It'll all be linked in the description. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please try to be kind to people, stay safe, stay fighting, and I'll see you sometime with another video.